let's hit slide 7 here. Let's break into the prophecy. Now, I want to talk about this. So we have this idea in first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, the seed of Medai, which was made king of the realm of the Chaldean. Okay, so we know that the realm of the Chaldean, the realm would become the ultimate situs of the Babylonian Talmud, the code of traditions which would come to govern the Judaism we know today. In other words, Judaism is not run, let's be clear about this, very important for the listeners to know. Modern Judaism is not run on the Torah. When a modern day practitioner of the religion of Judaism says the Torah, they mean the Talmud, because the Talmud, of course, includes the Gemara and the Mishnah being the secondary law, that is to say the written oral law, the duplicate, if you will, and the Gemara, which includes rabbinical opinion on the Torah. So the Torah is within the Gemara, but there's rabbinical opinion, and the rabbinical opinion is followed. And if the rabbinical opinion contradicts the Torah, the rabbinical opinion is followed, not the Torah. So we have to be very, very clear and very concise that what the doctrine governing modern-day Judaism is the Babylonian Talmud, a Talmud created in Babylon in the 4th century and perfected by around the 7th or 8th century, governing the Chaldean, not those who went back to Jerusalem, but the Chaldean who remained resident in what was Babylon at that time, what would become Persia, what would become the Greek Empire afterwards. Those are the Chaldean, okay? All right, slide 8. So, when we talk about the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by the Sepharim the number of the years whereof the word of Yahweh came to Yirmiyahu the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolation of Jerusalem. Now, this prophecy, when we get into Daniel 9, we're going to discover that we're talking about 70 years. This is the first thing we're talking about. The context in Daniel 9, 1 and 2 tells you we're going to talk about 70 years. And it's going to be 70 years that are accomplished, and those 70 years have an important aspect to it. We'll get to it. Okay, slide 9. The prophecy is essentially about 70 years. And this whole land shall be a desolation and an astonishment, and these nations shall serve at the king of Babel for 70 years. And it shall come to pass when 70 years are accomplished that I will punish the king of Babel and that nation, says Yahweh, for at their iniquity and the land of the Chaldean, and I will make it a perpetual desolation. Now, this is from Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah 12, verses 11 through 12. All right. Slide 10. And here we have Divri Hayamim Sheni, or 2 Chronicles, and the prophecy reads as this: and them that had escaped from the sword carried he away to Babel, where they were servants to him and his sons until the reign of the kingdom of Persia, to fulfill the word of Yahweh by the mouth of Yirmiyahu, until the land had enjoyed at her Shabbathot. For as long as she lay desolate, she kept Shabbat to fulfill 10 years, i.e. 70 years. Now, what you see here is this. Moses tells us in the book of Jubilees in chapter 50, he says, look, even the land will keep its Shabbathot, will keep its Sabbaths. Even the land will do that. So when we talk about the land keeping its Sabbath, the land keeps its Sabbath. And this means whether you do or not, the land is going to keep its Sabbath. And at some point, if people do not grant the land its 7th year sabbatical year of no planting and allowing the field to basically go fallow for a year, if you don't do that, eventually the land is going to say, that's it, I'm out of gas, and you're not planting anything more here until I recapture my Shabbathot. In this case, the failure to keep the sabbatical year began with the very appointment of Shaul, the first king of Israel. When Samuel said, okay, here's Shaul, your king, that was the end of keeping the sabbatical year. It was done. It was over. They didn't do it anymore. And for 490 years, they failed to keep the sabbatical year. And so as a consequence, the land then said, I'm going to keep the Sabbath, whether you do or not, get out. And the land became a desolation for 70 years, that it would keep its Shabbathot. And this is given to us here in 2 Chronicles, but also foretold by Moshe in chapter 50 of the book of Jubilees, verses 1 through 4. Okay, so Now, we look at Jeremiah 29, it says, for thus says Yahweh, that after 70 years be accomplished at Babel, I will visit you and perform at my good works toward you in causing you to return to this place. So here Jeremiah is telling us again, 70 years. So we have 70, 70, 70, 70, 70, 70, 70, 70. It's going to be 70 years. You're going to be gone out of the land for 70 years. There's a 70-year period, quiet period. Now, I can tell you there's been other 70-year quiet periods. The Russian Revolution, which installed communism in 1919, which then terminated in 1989, was a 70-year famine of the word in the Soviet Union, a 70-year famine of the word. Desolation was brought upon the land because of the sins of the people. Okay, now here, if people are watching this, they might want to screen capture this, because what you're going to see is, you're going to see a timeline that is put together so that you can understand this temple period, and this temple period as to what it means in terms of the timing of the coming of the desolation of the temple, the 70 years of captivity, and in particular, the edict that says go and rebuild. All right, so in 609 BC, Yahuachaz becomes king for 3 months, and then his brother Jehoiakim becomes king. Then in 605, Nebuchadnezzar conquers Nineveh and becomes king of not only the Assyrian Empire, but also the Babylonian Empire. So at this point, what was Sumeria, down around the Tigris-Euphrates Delta in that area, is now going to expand up to capture all of the Assyrian Empire, which really goes into the Anatolian provinces of what is now modern-day Turkey, most of Syria, reaching back up into Armenia, across into Iran. You know, this is a very broad-based empire, and Nebuchadnezzar has conquered the whole kit and caboodle. He's conquered this massive territory, okay, and is now king. All right, Nebuchadnezzar then conquers Jehoiakim and makes him a vassal king. Jehoiakim rebels against Nebuchadnezzar, and Jehoiakim is killed, and his brother Jehoiakim is appointed in his place as vassal king. Now, you see, all these are brothers, right? People try to say, oh, that's his son, that's his son, that's his son. Well, it's not. They were all brothers. And Matthew 1 tells us this. And remember that Matthew 1 was more likely based upon different writings than the Masoretic text, okay? Matthew 1 was based on different writings. And you get this litany of these kings right in Matthew 1, very important. And it says the Babylonian captivity when Yekoniah and his brothers were taken captive, okay? So here you see that Jehoiakim is killed. His brother Jehoiakim is appointed in his place as vassal king. Jehoiakim rebels and is taken into exile as well. And his brother, Sidkiyahu, Zedekiah, he's the youngest of the bunch. He's appointed king in place. Okay, the first temple, the Beit Mikdash, is destroyed on the 9th of Av in 586 BC. Great, important marker. All right. 560 BC, Nebuchadnezzar dies. His son Evil-Merodach becomes king. Evil-Merodach dies after reigning for 22 years, and Belshazzar becomes king in 538 BC. 536, Mene Tekel Perez, right? The 2,520 years, the writing on the wall that took place in Daniel 5. This is when Belshazzar believed erroneously that 70 years had passed and that the house of Yehuda had not been redeemed, therefore he could drink out of the temple implements. Well, he was wrong, and then he was killed by Darius or Darius, who ruled for 1 year. Now, in 534 BC, Koresh takes the kingdom for 3 years. Now, Koresh is also called Cyrus. I didn't have a chance to put together the slide. I believe it's out of Isaiah 43, where Isaiah says, I have called you by name. You do not know my name, but I know your name. And he's talking about Koresh, or Cyrus. Okay, that prophecy was read to Koresh by Daniel. And when Koresh saw the prophecy, Koresh, who believed in pagan gods, okay, Koresh never believed in Yahweh. Koresh believed in pagan gods. And he writes the proclamation that's called the Pekidah, and this was, or he revealed the Pekidah, which is the declaration to return to the land, and he did this on the Cyrus scroll. Now, this scroll is still in existence. It's a clay scroll. You can type it into Google, Cyrus scroll, And you can find out where it is. Usually it bounces between London and New York. But it's a scroll, a clay scroll kind of cylinder, a clay cylinder, and you would dip it in ink and then roll it out on the Sanskrit to tell you what it said. And it was the first proclamation of religious liberty ever crafted in the civilized world, at least after the flood. Okay, so Akashverosh, or Xerxes, becomes king in 531 BC. Now, we see here that we're talking about Akashverosh, that Darius was the son of Akashverosh. Well, what's that tell you? It tells you that the Darius up here in 536 BC was Darius the first. This Darius here, Akashverosh, is going to be the second Darius. He's another Darius, right? So Akashverosh becomes king, and then in 519, the miracle of Purim occurs. Hadassah redeems her people. Now, by the way, if you get a chance to read the additions to Esther, which is the true book of Esther, not the redacted book of Esther that we have in the 66-book Bible. And if you don't believe that, check the Spanish Bible. The Spanish Bible has the full edition of Esther, all 15 chapters of Esther in the Spanish Bible, but we have the shortened version in the English Bible. And the shortened version does not have any prayers, does not mention the name of Yahweh. It begs the question, why is this book in Scripture if it doesn't mention Yah at all? But the real book of Hadassah did, and it says something. There's something very interesting about Hadassah in this book of Hadassah. It says Hadassah was black. Esther was black. This is what it says. And Hadassah redeems her people. 519 BC. This is under Akashverosh. 517 BC. Akashverosh dies. Darius, his son, becomes the king, and in his first year, Daniel writes the prophecy in chapter 9. So this Daniel 9 was written in 517 BC. That's an important thing to remember, because at this point, we still don't have the realization of all 70 years. Okay? But in 516 BC, the following year, Darius gives permission to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash exactly 70 years later. Okay? Very important. All right.